So hello everybody, I'm Ananya and welcome to my podcast. And the theme of this podcast is how do you really stay artistic? As a guest today, we have Matt Nuccio. And how about you talk about yourself a little?
Sure. My name is Matt Nuccio, and I'm a professional toy designer. So we design toys and games for the toy market around the world. So yeah, we're it's professional artists. We get to see our work all over the place.
That's great. So the first question I had for you was how and when did you know that this was really your calling, something you wanted to pursue?
Well, I just always knew. So I sort of grew up in the toy industry. I was surrounded by it, and I always had the ability to draw and sculpt. And I was told I had a wild imagination, so I decided to put it to use. And it's been very fortunate to know my career trajectory from a very young age. And I'm very happy with what I do.
That's great. So, I mean, you said you love to do art and sculpt as well, right? Like paint and
Yeah.
everything. So,
Yes,
how
yes.
did you know that that was also what you liked? Like you were inclined towards that?
Well, I grew up. Both sets of parents are artists, and my grandparents as well. So we were always drawing and painting and going to museums, and I never really stopped my education, even though now I'm in my 40s. I still take drawing classes just to make sure that I'm always learning and improving.
That's great. Lovely to hear. So, do you have anything where you take inspiration from, or do you just have a wild imagination and you just draw and do whatever comes in your mind?
Well, that's a great question because I'm not 100% sure where I get my inspiration from because it just sort of strikes. But I don't, like some people go to museums, which I do, but I'll even find a retail store like it's a museum. I'll walk the aisles of a store and look at all the different products and all the different packaging, all the different designs and engineering, and I'll look at everything with a very eye for design and just trying to figure out why they made certain selections. And I look to see, what's selling and what's not selling, and really everywhere you go is art, right? So everything is designed. Everything's got to be designed by somebody. So I just take it all in, and then when inspiration strikes, I run with it. And then when inspiration doesn't strike, I still have to run because I have to do this for a living. So, sorry, we might get interrupted for a second here because
That's
they're gonna
okay.
puzzle. So yeah, so I do this. That's my day to day. So it's always going forward.
So do you also, I mean, try to replicate something, or do you just take an idea from that?
Um, we work so many different ways. It really every job is unique, and every project has its own set of problems and its own set of solutions. So it's whatever it takes. There's no rules when it comes to being creative. Because if there were rules, it wouldn't be being creative.
That's absolutely correct. And I believe that, yeah. So you also work, right? So do you believe that it is possible to be an artist with a full-time job or something of that sort?
I mean, like on the side, like being an artist and also have a full-time job. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's many people. Like I told you, I take art classes now, and many of those people in my classes are not, professional designers or professional artists such as myself. And yet, some of them skills are far better than mine, and they're teachers and they're doctors and they're whatever auto mechanics. They're whatever. There's no art can be very personal. So you can be an artist just on your own time. Absolutely.
And have you thought of switching to be a commercial artist anytime or any of that sort, anything?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Have you ever thought of being a commercial artist or anything
Have I
of
ever
that
thought
sort?
a commercial artist, just like a professional painter or something?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually started my career that way. Actually, early on when I was in my 20s, I was doing a lot of gallery shows and very large paintings in New York, and I got to hang out with a lot of very famous and legendary artists. And but I was still very strong on toy design, so I went. I became more focused on that, but I still paint and do some shows from here and now. Yeah.
That's great. The last question I had for you was, what is your definition of a successful art piece, a successful artist?
Well, I mean, there's so many definitions of that, right? Some people would say it's a financial thing. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think if you're achieving an end goal and you're always improving, right? That's the real measure of success, and you're not just running in place. You're able to grow, and your art is leading you to grow and not holding you back. Because I know some people, find themselves a little niche, and they stay in that niche, and they never expand past it, and that would drive me crazy. I always need to be doing something new and learning something new.
And what about the times when had stuck on something that you want to do this, get this done? How did you feel about that?
When I'm stuck on something, I usually put it aside and start two or three other things, and then I come back to it. So I often do that. So a lot of my sketchbooks, because I fill sketchbooks from cover to cover all the time, about two or three a year. Um, and I'll work on a couple of pages, and then I'll get stuck on something, and I'll go back and I'll start finishing up something I was working on 2 months ago, and then, or skip a couple of pages and find something. Because sometimes I find myself in a mood where or zone where I'm just either my line works better or my shading's better. So then I'll apply that to a couple of different things that I wasn't able to get that particular day. So I'm always working on many projects at once.
That's great. Have you ever, however, felt like, something you did was not actually successful as per your definition, as per what you felt it might have been?
Oh yes, I mean that's just part of the human condition. Uh, but the great thing is if you ever put it aside and you go back to it years later, you can't even see what's wrong with it anymore. So I often wonder how that works, because sometimes I look at something and I'm like, I can't stand this, and then like I said, 5 years from now I'll look at it and I'll be like, I don't see what I didn't like about this. It's sometimes you made a mistake and that's all you can focus on, and nobody else sees that but you.
That's absolutely true. And that is true, yes. So thank you so much for this. And I had a lovely time having you on. And
Oh,
thank you
thank
for
you.
doing this again with me.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.